Don't frazzle my It's the Woodworking Morning Show.
Oh, it did work. Okay. Well, it was black before, and now it's okay. We're good. Hey, everybody! It's Friday Live. No, it's not. It's the morning show.
Friday, and we're live.
I'm never going to get used to it. It's the Woodworking Morning Show, everyone. Good morning. It does also happen to be Friday. And, Nicole's going to watch the show.
Okay.
Do you enjoy watching the show? Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're going to try to pull off a show today.
Try.
We're going to do our best.
Oh, we were the ish today.
The what? The ish?
The 9:30-ish.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I'm going to do this a lot because I hurt my neck.
You look like, what's his name? The first Batman movie where the cowl went into his shoulder pads. And I just remember there's a lot of scenes where he's like climbing up a tower and he has to look up, but he can't bend his neck. So he's always like this.
Yeah.
Like that. That's what you look like.
My kids are literally a pain in my neck.
They're so annoying. They've turned you into a Michael Keaton Batman.
They're saying we're really loud.
Is it loud?
I don't know. You're the audio guy.
The people know what they want, Nicole, and I just fixed it for them.
Okay.
Okay?
What's going on?
Because I told you, remember I had the thing set wrong? I had it on the wrong microphone.
Mm-hmm.
It was recording from laptop mic.
Audio is crap.
Hey, good job, you guys. Way to be on the ball. Let's do a show. Live audio is crap. You know what? You're crap, Harry M.
He's joking.
I am joking. Oh, Cremona is here. Look at that. We are so lucky to have him with us. Okay,
we don't have alcohol.
Let's do a show.
No.
I could use some. The reason we're late is because, Jay and I were out front diagnosing tree problems and grass problems.
It could be grubs.
It could be grubs. It could be, we think it's tree roots, and we're going to kill a tree.
Are you really going to kill that tree?
I think a tree has to go.
That tree?
You got to choose. You want a tree or you want grass?
Oh.
Yeah, not the pine. So we got some questions. We got some stuff to show off. You want to show off the stuff first, or go to questions?
Yeah, we could show off because we were a little backlogged.
Yeah.
And it always happens when I check the mailbox. Shortly after, I get a notice we got another package, and that happened again. I'm like, dang it.
I love having people. They're analyzing the sound problem. It's overmodulated. Is what it is, you guys.
Matt, for me, it's pain in my neck.
It is, literally.
And that's something I've heard of.
Look at this.
Yep.
Shirt for my mother-in-law. Thank you, Ruth. This is for my 43rd quarantine birthday with a toilet paper on it, which is fantastic. It's also just a little bit small on me. Watch this.
It's tiny.
It's a little up on the shoulders.
She doesn't know your size.
No, it's I can get away with medium sometimes, but most of the time I need a large. Yeah. Okay. So we got a couple things to show off. Some people were really kind and generous to send us some cool things. First of all, it's a show from Once Upon a Workbench. You can find him on Instagram. He's got some great videos. I love this guy's stuff. He sent me a shirt.
And there was a letter, and I can't find it.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
We'll find it, I'm sure. Dovetails, woo.
That's awesome.
That is fantastic. There's no trademark issues there at all, right?
Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you so much. And by the way, Once Upon a Workbench, he makes really great geeky things. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's a little bit of a theme here today. He makes a lot of great geeky projects.
He calls it
really
handcrafted geeky goodness. He has a YouTube channel.
He's a good dude. Seems like it anyway. At least when he does something really evil and bad, people will say, he seemed like a nice guy. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what you say about those people. Okay, we got this. This is interesting. These are wipes. And this was sent from Matt Roberson. Mm-hmm. And he says, been meaning to drop these in the mail for some time, but I finally got around to it. I think you'll find these towels pretty handy. My cousin's a mechanical engineer and turned me on to them. They're actually intended for the aerospace industry, but they're lint-free. He goes on to explain this, and he says he has no affiliation, but he just loves these things. These look like fantastic finishing towels, right? Instead of using a cotton cloth.
Yeah, he was saying he uses them with Osmo, and they're great.
Sure, I could totally see that. These are fantastic, and you know what? We could always use these. These are great. So thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it, dude. That was really nice of you. Where's this dude's information?
Right there. Kyle.
All right, this is kind of like the elephant in the room. How can you not notice this thing? This is a wall plaque, obviously done with a chisel, right? I think so. And a drill bit. These are fantastic. Let's see, we got a Marvel and a DC.
He designed these.
Well, yeah, and he calls them calendars. So I'm going to have to figure out how the calendar works, though. Clearly, there's like a thing happening here for the months.
Yeah.
But who cares? It's Marvel, and it's awesome.
He also gave you a DC one down on
Yeah,
the floor.
so here's a DC. I'll flip that one up here. Oh, jeez, I just lost my microphone. See, this is why I didn't want to bring the DC one up.
Well, we should have had it closer.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda. You got a little bit of Superman with his beautiful little curly Q on his forehead. So whether you are a DC person or a Marvel person, he's got you covered here.
That's cool.
So these are fantastic. Let's give him a really hearty plug.
What's his?
So his Instagram is Sandy Ego CNC. That's Sandy, Sandy, Ego, Eggo, CNC. His name's Kyle Emmerich. I get it. It took me a while to figure it out. What's Sandy Ego? Like the waffle? No, it's a play on San Diego.
Oh, San Diego.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so these are fantastic. Thank you so much. You know my penchant for Marvel, and I do like some DC. Tend to favor Marvel a little bit.
Has a nice little website too.
Does he?
I'll put his link in the
there you go.
chat.
So if I needed to buy a gift for someone who I knew was a comic fan,
that would be amazing.
Fantastic. The only problem is now I got to find room. Where am I going to put it up in the shop?
I was going to put one in the house.
Oh, well, I guess we could pick one and put it in the house.
Put one in Mateo's room would be awesome.
Sure.
Or Ava's.
These are great. Absolutely great. I got to figure out the calendar aspect to it, though.
Is Wonder Woman on the DC one?
It would be
she's at the top.
It would be a omission, a glaring omission.
She's at the top.
Here she is. Almost as big as Superman. Yeah. Superman's head is bigger, though. All right, should we do some questions?
Mike Candela says, Podfather Matt Vanderlist released a new video this week.
I know. He's been, the quarantine is good for Matt's Basement Workshop.
It's back.
He's been productive.
And if you're wondering what we're talking about, head on over to Matt's Basement Workshop and check out.
Do you think we should just quietly replace Matt Cremona with Vanderlist?
Oh, that would be fun.
And see if anybody notices?
I'm sure they notice.
Just substitute him, and it will just, nothing changes in the script. It's still Matt. That was the whole reason. That's why we went with another Matt, is to make them interchangeable.
No, you don't.
You think we should do that?
No.
I think that'd be fantastic. All right, let's get to some questions. Alex Copley wrote in on Patreon. That's patreon.com/woodwhisperer if you'd like to get in on that stuff.
Did you thank everybody?
No, I did not.
You did not.
All right. You know what the problem is? I didn't do the screenshot.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, jeez.
So
I'll thank them. Mark Green, Rob Bradfield, Ryan Elliott, and Roy Hamill.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
I think I didn't mess up a single name.
No, you only had 4, too.
Oh, that's pretty good.
No, I'm glad you had that because I did not have their names here. So thank you, everybody, for helping us out on Patreon. We always appreciate that. Alex Copley says, I'm hoping your answer will help my productivity in the shop. What do you do to protect projects while you're waiting for finishes to cure? Or is this something I wouldn't worry about or shouldn't worry about so much? For example, I have a tabletop that I just put finish on, and I hate feeling like I have to do air to start the next project. I don't know what that means, but I guess he's saying that he might have to delay starting the next project. Mm-hmm. I have decent dust collection, but that only goes so far with tools like the bandsaw, routers, sanders. Any help would be appreciated. That's the small shop challenge we all face, right? If you have a small shop, you don't have a finishing room, you don't have a place that's dust-free, you just try to keep the dust down while finish is curing. It's hard to find a way around that. Even if you, like you said, run your dust collector and air cleaner, the stuff still gets in the air, and if you have a finish that is curing, it's still going to be problematic. One recommendation is to rethink your finishes, and that's easier said than done. Depending on what you're doing, the finish you're using may be the only finish you can use. If you use lacquers, they tend to dry a little bit faster, so you don't have to keep the shop dust-free for as long. If you're just doing like an oil-based poly or something like that takes a long time to cure, stays tacky for quite a while, that's kind of the worst-case scenario. But you also might look into hard wax oils, which generally speaking, once you buff that surface, Not that it's totally cured, but it's not really going to be impacted by stuff settling on the surface, because once it cures, then you can just kind of wipe it down or buff it again and it'll be fine. So your choice of finish makes a difference. But if you really do need to keep the area dust-free, you're not going to really have the option to start cutting again. That just is the nature of the beast. There were times where I would just take a couple days off from the shop when it was a finishing situation, and thankfully I have things I can do in the office. But I would come out in the shop, be there for an hour, and then I'll see it again the next day, right? There's really not much I can do while a finish is actively drying in the shop. So I don't really have any great answers to that. If anyone has any other suggestions in the chat, definitely give that to Alex.
I have a super chat from Chet Klaus. It's obvious the sound problem is Dunkin' Coffee. Take this and buy some Starbucks.
Oh gosh. Well, you see, we fixed it, Chet. So there's that. Good old Starbucks.
I mean, I'll do Starbucks in a pinch.
You'll do an Americana when you have to.
It's more. I like the mochas.
Well,
I feel like I should be in a neck brace.
Mm-hmm. I understand,
Sorry,
Nicole.
I'm looking at it.
Okay. What was the time? We need that for a screenshot later.
Pain in the neck is what the show
So
should be called.
Araya Woodworks has a question, and I'm gonna really tap my memory here. Alex, my good buddy Alex.
Your good buddy, yeah.
Right? I think it's Alex. You know, my best friend in high school was Alex.
Yeah.
So that one should come easy to me. Okay, Araya says, which blade do you have on your table saw? Is that what you would recommend for a shop that cuts mainly maple for hardwood and plywood? Do you switch blades often? I don't switch blades often. I'm lazy, so I usually have whatever it is. It's probably going to be a 40-tooth alternating bevel blade. I have kind of rotate between my Woodworker 2 and Lights blades, L-E-I-T-Z. The guy from Very Super Cool Tools deals with them, and they sent me a couple of samples, and they have been pretty great so far.
Right?
Yeah, Alan Little. So those are pretty good too, but I don't often switch because I find that a 40-tooth combo blade kind of does most of what I need it to do. Now I do have a ripping blade. I think it's always good to have a ripping blade on hand. If you're cutting, the hell was that?
Your trashy shop.
Sorry. I'm kicking around those towels that we were just praising.
Oh yeah.
Mistreating them.
They're okay. It's just towels.
Okay, but what the heck was I saying? Oh, it's good to have a ripping blade, even though I don't use it all the time. If you're doing something like, let's say, hard maple 8/4, and you need to rip that stuff, that's not, I mean, you can do it with a 40-tooth, but it's not that fun. You are going to be way happier doing that with a 30-tooth blade or some kind of ripping blade. It just makes it a whole lot easier, less burning, less strain on the saw, less strain on the blade, and less chance of you're pushing harder, right? Anytime you have to push harder to move wood through a tool, there's more of a chance that something could slip and you could wind up hurting yourself. So definitely have that ripping blade on hand, but a good quality 40-tooth combination blade can do wonders. Okay, Corey says, thoughts on the Woodpeckers Clampzillas? Pre-order ends a little over a week, and these things seem like the ultimate clamp plus call, but they're rather pricey.
Oh, they didn't send us any.
Oh, Woodpeckers?
Yeah.
This is the second round of Clampzillas. They had the originals, and now these are Clampzilla Juniors. So they are a smaller size range.
I like the name.
Clampzilla. Yeah. Clampzilla. So the thing about this is, if you're looking at value, you have to be pretty critical about this. So the people who have bought these things, keep in mind, I haven't had my hands on these, so I can't speak from experience. I can only speculate and then share what I've heard. People who have these do like them. And I think if you have stuff that you are doing repeatedly, maybe you're doing cabinet doors and they're always in the same size range. So having these sets of clamps kind of pre-made and ready to go, you can just drop your stuff on, put that thing down, clamp them, everything is good. Maybe you're making a bunch of cutting boards, right? That's a case where you might have a pretty consistent size range that you're clamping within. These things can be a great time saver with that built-in call. What I can tell you, and people who have the Clampzilla, you can let me know if this is the case. In the past, this is not a new concept. There have been clamps with built-in call action for a long time. I had a set probably in 2006. I think Rockler used to sell it. It was a set of clamp heads, and you would have to make this notched piece of wood that would connect them, right? So it's the same concept, whereas you're clamping and you're pulling this way, the clamps are also bringing the calls down on top of the boards, so your panel stays flat. I found that they didn't work that well. And again, that was wood. Now, these Clampzillas are obviously a lot better made, so maybe they do effectively clamp. But what I found is those clamping systems don't put enough pressure to give me that perfect surface matching. The only thing that ever gave me that perfect matching is a traditional caul with clamps squeezing it nice and tight, or the domino. The domino is that accurate that when you put that thing there, those edges are just perfect with each other, as close as you can possibly get. Maybe the Clampzillas do that. I don't know. I haven't had my hands on them. So what I'm going to do is break down the cost for you. This Clampzilla pack, it's a 4-pack, costs $369. You get 19.5 inches of capacity, so nothing wider than 19.5 inches will be able to fit into this thing. Just for comparison purposes, a Jet 24-inch 2-pack costs $120. So you can get 24 inches of clamping capacity that can be used for a lot of other clamping operations. The Clampzillas are going to be a little bit more limited with what you can do, but you get about 5 inches more clamping capacity, and you can get 6 of them compared to the 4 that you get with the Clampzilla. So value-wise, it's a hard sell unless you're doing something that is repetitive enough to justify having these things always in a single configuration, because if you want to change the size range, you do have to change the setup a little bit and get that done before you throw your panels in. So value-wise, I think parallel clamps are a better value for you. But if you do a lot of repetitive tasks that fit into that size range, that might be something to consider. So hopefully that was a fair, unbiased breakdown of the size, or the value of them, sorry.
Judy Gratz just did a super chat and said, thank you for answering both of my questions last week. Judy, you're so welcome.
Judy, that's what we do here.
That's what we do.
Answering questions and drinking coffee.
Taking names.
Taking names and drinking coffee. Okay,
Brian, I got another one. Brian Boatwright did a super chat and said, is the sliding table saw worth the cost and space? I have a 600 square foot shop area, and I've been thinking of buying a new table saw with a slide add-on.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, people who have a slider, it's kind of like if you can completely replace everything you use a miter gauge for or a crosscut sled for with that slider, then I think it starts to become worth it. If you are processing a lot of sheet goods, cabinet shops, for instance, if I had a cabinet shop and my job was to cut plywood, you can bet I would have probably not an add-on, I would have a Euro slider. I would have a full-sized unit with a really nice sliding mechanism to it, because those are great for sheet goods, but they're pretty big. They got to be pretty big.
Pretty big.
Pretty big, because they're putting a 4x8 sheet on there. The add-on systems, like SawStop has an add-on. Didn't Powermatic have an add-on? Whatever happened to that?
I don't know.
I could have sworn they came up with a slider add-on, but it was only on certain models.
Mm-hmm. Dustin wants to know what the brand of towels are. Real quick.
Sontara, Sontara.
Okay, I'll look it up.
It definitely looks like something I would have.
Pantera!
Yeah. No, it looks like a box that you would see in a lab.
Oh,
like if you ever worked in a lab, that's what every product looks like.
They're on Amazon. I'll just add it to our Amazon store. And
Nice.
if you buy through our store, really, if you click any link on the store, we get a small percentage back. So is it this one or that one?
Neither of those.
Oh.
That's DuPont's. Oh no, it might be that first box.
It's this one right here.
$25.
$25.
Although this one doesn't say DuPont on it, but maybe that's just the brand thing.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But it's the aircraft white.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to add it
Sweet.
right now to Friday Live.
Here you go.
Amazon.com/shop/the WoodWhisperer.
I need some aerospace baby wipes. Because sometimes it's just messy, Nicole. Okay, Cole Mason says, edge banding is an ongoing struggle for me. While I like the simplicity and ease of applying iron-on edge banding, I can never seem to get it trimmed cleanly, or either with a sharp knife or a squeezable edge banding trimmers. Even narrow hardwood edge banding has its own challenges, filling nail holes, avoiding gaps and overhangs. Any tips for getting great results when edge banding plywood? All right, well, iron-on edge banding, not something I've done a whole lot of.
Did you just fart?
No, I hit my foot on the wall. Oh, if I farted, you would not have to ask the question. And it would be more than just a toot. So iron-on stuff, not my favorite. I mean, I've done it in the past. There's been projects that really required it, and I don't like it. It's just, I find that over time, that iron-on banding is not that durable, right? It wants to peel off, so it's not my favorite. But I've had the same problems you've had. Trimming that stuff nice and flush, easily, can be tricky. And a lot of times if I'm, I like to try to get the iron-on edge banding before I do assembly. So I'll put it on a workpiece. Let's say it's like a cabinet, side or something like that. I will then put that side down on the sacrificial surface with the edge banding down after it's attached, and then grab a very sharp knife, whether it's just a razor blade, a box cutter, whatever, and get down into that corner and slowly go across and kind of pre-score the edge and work my way through to snap it off. And then from that point, I'm sanding, right? And it gets a little gummy because you get into the adhesive layer, but that was the way that I got the best results. The trimmers and things like that, sometimes they work okay. You don't really want to go to the extent of a flush trim bit, I guess. I wonder if people do that, for very thin veneer tape like that, which is essentially what it is. I don't know that you would get good results. You might get a lot of gumming because of the adhesive. So you're really left with these manual things, and that's why, again, it's just not my favorite way to do it. But that's what I always found is a good sharp blade, laying it down on the surface so you've got support, going right up into that corner and slicing it across. If you're using shop-made edge banding, I think things become easier. You don't always need to use a brad nailer. I mean, if you're in a rush, you have to because you're waiting for the glue to dry and using tape and clamps, it can be a mess. But if it's a one-off thing, I usually like to use some kind of clamp or even just blue tape as a clamp to hold that in there. Then you don't have any nail holes to worry about, and I find that to be a little bit easier to work with. Okay, who do I have here? Peter Villaluz. I live in Virginia, but will be living and working outside of the country for the next year. Unfortunately, we'll need to leave my tools and woodworking behind. I'm hoping that it'll be still able to watch the morning show live instead of when you posted it later. I'm going to coat my tools with Renaissance wax to hopefully keep them rust-free. How much of a coating do you think is sufficient? How about storage? I have a mechanic's tool chest and safe where I put the planes and chisels with a small rechargeable dehumidifier. Also, any tips on how to keep the rust that's already developing from spreading? And yes, they are new hand planes when I bought them a year ago. Okay, first of all, I would say if you have rust, get rid of it and then make sure it doesn't come back, right? If the rust is starting and you're preventing it from spreading, we need to step back and find out what we can do to stop it from starting in the first place. I don't want to see you band-aid the problem, I want to see you prevent it from happening in the first place. I don't think Renaissance wax is your solution here. Renaissance wax, I find, is a great wax for just kind of making the surface slick. And it certainly would provide a little bit of rust protection, but if you are in a humid climate and you are leaving these things to stay there for a long time, you want something a little bit heavier duty than Renaissance wax. I would recommend you go with, T9 Bow Shield. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
You could spray a layer of that on there. It's sticky, it's gross, but you're not touching it, right? The whole point is put that layer on there, that'll protect the surface. You can also look into products like Cosmoline, I think it's called.
Bow Shield. Remember when I was saying BioShield?
Yeah, T9 BioShield. It's a deodorant that they sell. So you got Bow Shield as an option. There's Cosmoline products, which is kind of when you get a new tool and it's coated with that really sticky schmutz, and you got to use like paint thinner or mineral spirits to get it off. That's that stuff. That's actually one of the best protective things for
called?
cast iron surfaces. Cosmoline.
Cosmoline?
Spelled like it sounds. I-N-E.
Oh.
Cosmo Kramer, and you have to spell Cosmo correctly. C-O-S-M-O.
C-O-S.
S-M-O-L-I-N-E.
L-I-N-E.
Mm-hmm.
Cosmoline. Oh, wow.
So you'll find different products. It looks like they actually have spray versions of it, which might be appropriate.
Aerosol can.
So anything that could rust, put that on it. I think it's actually going to do really well. And possibly, I mean, you say you got a rechargeable dehumidifier. I imagine someone will be responsible for charging that. You might go into something passive, like bags of desiccant, like you find with products that you purchase.
Oh, those little...
Yeah, just the little bean bags.
Yeah, little bean bags.
Right, but you can buy them in multi-packs. You can get them on Amazon in bigger packs. Put those in the drawers of your cabinet where your other tools are, just to stack the cards in your favor. Desiccant. Another spelling challenge for you. I think it's D-E-S-I-C-A-N-T. Two S's.
There it is. Oh, look at that. They got all kinds of them.
Yeah, you can find all kinds of things. So those will be the best defense.
I didn't know that's what they were called.
Yeah, so let's prevent the rust from happening at all instead of trying to correct the rust or preventing it from getting worse.
You know what? I'm going to put all of the things he said in our Amazon store under Friday Live. So
cool.
You can reference and know how to spell it.
Yeah. Charles Masters says, I'm curious, when I see Many of the woodworkers out there doing videos, they take the plane blade and chip breaker out of the plane just to hone it, just to touch it up. They always take the chip breaker off. Is that really necessary, or can you leave it on since all you're going to do is hone the very edge of the blade? You can keep it on. And the thing you have to think about is true high-level sharpening comes from the working of two surfaces, right? The meeting of the bevel with the back of the plane iron or chisel, whatever it is. So typically when you hone the bevel, you get a little bit of frayed material at the tip. And that's when we flip it over, just give it a few passes on a high grit stone to the flat back needs to be honed just a little bit too to get rid of that wire edge. And that's how you get the sharpest point. Can you get away with not doing that? Yeah, I think if you're just doing a quick touch-up and you just want a little bit of extra sharpness, you probably can on your highest grit stone or your strop, whatever it is you're using for that high grit touch-up. Just do a little bit on the bevel and then go back to work. You could probably get away with that. But ultimately, the reason you're going to see people take it out of the chip breaker is because I think they want the option to take a couple passes right as soon as they're done with the bevel on the back to get that true razor edge meeting of two planes, right? Ideally. Now, if they're taking it out of the chip breaker and only doing the bevel, probably just wasting their time. Like, why would you do that? The only reason to do it is because I need access to what the chip breaker is covering. And if you're just doing the bevel, that's not necessary. So that's how I feel about it. I wouldn't make a big habit out of it, though.
Who was it? Plan D Woodwork suggested damp rid.
Damp rid.
Which is, it looks like a charcoal.
Sounds like something you would put as a liner in underwear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's hot out here. I wish I had my damp rids on.
It's a moisture absorber.
Oh, a good absorber. Wonderful absorber.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's what you want. Keep the moisture out of there. I mean, a year isn't that bad. So I think you have a couple of products like this. If you have enough of it throughout your stuff, you probably could, keep the moisture at bay.
Yeah, that's cool. Lots of good suggestions.
Good suggestions.
I got a super chat here from Jake Baker.
Jaker.
He says, my face masks arrived this week, and I wanted to say Nicole did a fantastic job, even better than store-bought. Oh, thanks.
Isn't it, though? That's what my grandma's best compliment. Better than store-bought.
It's better than store-bought.
Yeah, the masks are great. Nicole made me a nice one with a tool pattern. I think that's the one you still sell.
Well, I don't have any in stock right now because I'm way behind.
Yeah.
Because I'm working on that quilt.
It's all right. You could take a break.
Yeah. But I will have more eventually. I'm probably in a couple weeks. So.
Yeah, we've had some like house emergency things happen, like a plumbing leak, and it's very interesting having to put these masks on and interact with people in your own home. I
actually rejigged the one I made with ties, and I use elastic for kids, so the pattern is actually really adjustable. So I made Mateo one. He was so cute, and he's like, I think I'm going to try my mask out. I'm like, okay, buddy.
Nice.
So, what? Am I having problems?
Well, you're hiding your mic under your flap. Sorry. I might be messing. It might have been fine, and everyone's going like, just leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
But it bothers me.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Brian Thorpe says, not mentioning brands, but why is my purple 150 grit sandpaper rougher and more grittier than my red 80 grit sandpaper?
Do they usually the colors?
Well, the colors. It depends. I mean, certain brands are certain colors. Red is like Reuben if you're talking about Festool. Purple, I think, is one of the Norton colors. Yeah, generally, sandpaper is not just all things are equal. Depending, if you look at the details, you might find that the material it's made out of is different. So sandpaper generally is going to be two things. You've got a paper backer, right? That's going to determine some of the properties of the sandpaper. And then you have the grit that is essentially glued to that paper. And the kind of grit that they use can vary, just depending on the purpose of the sandpaper. Some of it's coated, some's non-coated. The coated stuff helps you repel finish. So if you're sanding finish layers, you want one that's coated versus non-coated, which is what you would use on bare wood. But the little rocks, the little baby rocks that are on the surface can be made from different things. And I don't even have them off the top of my head. Aluminum oxide, there's just different stuff. So sometimes they feel grittier than others. There's also something that I found with really low grit sandpaper. I don't know whether it's a coating that's on it, but a lot of times if you go to like a 60 grit and you take that, and some brands of 60 grit, you would think that would just tear up a wood surface. But in some cases, I find it just kind of burnishes the surface. It's not as aggressive as you would think because those particles are just so large, they're kind of just dancing on the surface and not really cutting in, right? So if you go to a slightly higher grit where the particles are smaller, it seems like they have an easier job of cutting in. So a lot of times when I'm doing anything really aggressive, I tend to not go below 80 grit for that reason, because past 80, it just doesn't seem to cut the way that I want it to, and it could just be the brands that I'm buying. So I would just say, depending on what you have, it could be, the feel of it could simply be the type of material that the sandpaper is made of, Or it could be this other thing I'm describing with the coating that's on it. Okay, Luke Kearns, greetings from the road. I'm a truck driver. When home, I've discovered the passion for woodworking, thanks in part to you. Well, that's awesome. I'm on the cusp of purchasing a router and some starter bits. However, I'm having difficulty qualifying the correct size router to purchase. I've narrowed my options down to the Milwaukee 2¼ multi-base and the Triton 3¼ dual mode. They serve the same fixed base and plunging purposes. They're comparable in price and reviews. Does the extra 1 horse make a difference to a beginner? All right, probably not. Probably not. So here's the thing. The 3¼ never had my hands on it, but generally 3¼ horsepower routers are going to be bigger and heavier. They're not my favorite as my go-to.
You are saying it's not my favorite a lot.
Well, this
Ava's
is
rubbing off on
This
you.
is the truth. Well, I'm spending a lot of time with our kids.
Well, maybe she got it from us, and we don't know
That's
that we
not
say.
my favorite.
She always says that.
Yeah, I don't know. Who it's a chicken or the egg situation here. So the larger format routers can be great. Like I've got the Festool OF 2020. That thing is a beast, and it's probably one of my favorite routers, but I don't use it that often. It's my favorite because of the features, and it's super powerful. But it's also a pain in the butt to use because, ultimately, we got to think about ergonomics. And a big, heavy router can actually be kind of tough on the wrists. And if you have to use it and move it around and things like that, same argument I have with the Domino. That's why I like the smaller Domino, because you use it most often. It's a lot easier to sling that around than the big 700. So when it comes to the router, you just got to decide, do you need the extra horsepower? I would say 99% of the routing I do, I have a small format, like I don't know what the equivalent of the Festool is, but it's around a 2¼ horsepower model. That works great. It's easy to move around, it's not too heavy, and it does the job. So the Triton is going to be a little bit more on that heavier side. I even texted Matt this morning because I know he's Triton's boyfriend, we'll call him that. And I said, is that Triton, because it looks a little smaller than other 3¼ horse units, but is it still kind of beefy and heavy? He said, yeah, it is. It's definitely a larger format. So in general, I would say the lighter, smaller, more nimble routers are the ones you would want to look at as your go-to everyday router. In a router table, that's when I favor the 3¼ horse. That's when I want something a little bit more powerful. The one thing you have to keep in mind here is Triton actually makes some pretty cool accessories that go with the router. So if you want to put that router and adapt it to a track system, or you want a good quality edge guide, Triton's thinking about these things with their accessories. So their line of accessories is very tempting. If you go to Milwaukee, there's not a whole lot. I'm actually really, as much as I love Milwaukee, very disappointed in what they do with their routers, with the exception of their new battery-powered laminate trimmer, which is fantastic. But that little 2¼ horse router, what are you going to do for an edge guide? How's dust collection? Can you adapt it to, there's third-party things that allow you to do these things and adapt it to things like tracks, but it's not out of the box, very easy to do. So you have to kind of weigh your options there. I can't give you a specific answer, but hopefully that lays out the column A and column B, and you decide what's right for you.
WB Fine Woodworks at the top of the show asked, on a recent Wood Talk podcast, you made recommendations on using a film finish for cutting boards. Do you have a specific finish that you think will be best?
I hate to get into this publicly, like in this format, because the varnish on a cutting board thing is a difficult conversation to have.
Yes.
And if you, everyone, if you're interested, go to woodtalkshow.com. The latest episode that we released on Wednesday, we have a discussion, a very frank discussion about the world of cutting boards, and that includes finishing and construction and all that stuff. Not necessarily providing answers, but raising questions, because a lot of the things that we question are not answered scientifically. They're answered anecdotally, and that doesn't make for a good, sort of definitive conversation about this stuff. So I do think that generally speaking, it's okay to use varnish on an end grain cutting board.
Why are we talking about it then?
Because I want to answer his question.
Right.
I'm restating what I said on the show.
Okay.
And I have videos out there on this.
Yeah,
so my stance on this is public already. It just gets messy because there are a lot of people who absolutely think you should never use a varnish on a cutting board.
Yeah.
But when applied in a way that absorbs into the fibers and does not sit on the surface, you're not really putting a coat that puts a film layer on the top. There can be benefits to it, but you have to look at the research, what little there is, and decide if that's within your comfort zone. If it's not, don't do it. And I'll be honest, in the past, it used to be in my comfort zone. We have a great cutting board that I retired that still looks pretty darn good for as old as it is. It's like 15 years old.
It's the first cutting board. I still have it.
And it wasn't even from that video. It was the cutting board that inspired that video.
Right.
And I made more for the video. So it looks really good because it had that varnish sucked into the fibers, right? But it started to kind of, crack in certain places, and it was time to retire it, but we kept it. So
I kept it. You wanted to throw it away. I'm like, no, that's history.
I was ready for it to go.
No, I'm not getting rid of that.
So I will say that, there is logic to that varnishing concept. Look into it, see if it's right for you. For me personally, as I've gotten older and started to just think about safety precautions and things that may or may not be problems, I start to try to reduce any possibility of dangerous chemicals in my life, right? That's been something that's been a mission of mine in the last 5 years or so. So if I can use finishes that are a little kinder to my lungs, a little kinder to my brain cells, kinder to the environment, and do fewer things in the kitchen that might bring chemicals to the party that I don't want in my life, I'm going to go in that direction. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It means that as a human being, I've been making some of those changes for myself.
You've been using walrus oil.
Walrus oil is, they've got some good products for food safeness. What else is there? Walrus oil furniture butter.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorites. I'm using that, even though it says furniture butter, it's still perfectly food safe, and it's a nice like paste consistency. It's great for stuff in the kitchen. But what I am always avoiding, which I also talk about on Wood Talk, is mineral oil. I think everybody uses it. It's
Really?
like it's one of the go-to things for cutting boards. But I think you have such better options than mineral oil that are completely food safe, and you'll be happier with in the long
Dennis
run.
liked your conversation about the cutting boards.
Oh, good. It was one of those that I do it here all the time. I spend 10 minutes answering a question, and at the end I go, I'm not sure that I actually answered the question. So it was that kind of conversation. Like, we finished it, and we're like, did we just help anybody? Or did we just confuse the crap out of them?
Matt McCall wants to know, how do you keep from making a royal mess of your workbench when sharpening on water stones? I can answer this one. He goes in the kitchen and does it on my countertops.
Keep it off the workbench, dude. Don't dirty up your workbench when you got a perfectly good kitchen.
He's standing there and just, ugh.
It's all the swarf, dust, and stuff dries.
It gets so gross. I'm like, are you done yet?
We have a, not our choice, we didn't design this kitchen, it was here when we bought it. We've got a very big stainless steel covered island. And it's super weird, but I guess in some ways
I love it for baking.
It's got benefits. There are certainly benefits
baking on
to
it is great.
But it gets all scratchy. I'm going to have to resurface it at some point. But anyway, for sharpening, it's great, right? Because it's a nice metal surface and it's easy to clean when you're done. So yeah, I sharpen in there. When I do sharpen in the shop, it's problematic. That water gets all over the place. What I would suggest is get yourself a little sharpening station. And by a sharpening station, I mean a piece of plywood. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You don't need a bucket or a trough or anything like that. Just get yourself a piece of plywood, 24 by 24, plop that down on your workbench and secure it. You can get fancy if you want to and almost make it, put a little lip on it so you could always push forward and you don't have to worry about clamping it down. And do your work on that. That's a sacrificial surface. When it looks terrible in 5 years, throw it away and get a new one. If you want, put some finish on it so it doesn't absorb water all the time. I would have a sacrificial surface, and this way it doesn't make a mess of your bench. It just makes a mess of this sacrificial piece of ply.
Danielle in the chat says, I'm using epoxy to fill gaps on my turning blanks. I currently use West Systems, but it's a little pricey. Any advice on cheaper materials?
Is Total Boat, and I don't know the answer, you guys look this up, is Total Boat's epoxy? Because they make the same thing in the big pumps, just like West Systems. Same quantity is the same. And I've got a set over there I've been dipping out of that for months now. Seems pretty good, comparable stuff. Is it cheaper?
So is Total Boat and West Systems, those are really the two big players, right?
I suppose you could say that.
Turn off your watch.
I don't know who this is. So see if the price is cheaper with Total Boat, but generally speaking, when you're looking at those big jugs of epoxy,
Do you need both?
they're not cheap.
Do you need like all of that?
Well, that's a kit, so it's going
Yeah.
to come with cups and mixers and things like that. But it's a 2-part epoxy,
Yeah.
so you will need. It should come with two things.
Yeah.
So look, that's the only thing I could suggest. There might be another brand someone else can suggest, but comparable product is Total Boat. I don't know if it's cheaper.
Yeah. I'll look. I'll,
Okay.
I'll throw both in the Friday Live section of our Amazon store. And let's see.
Sounds good. Corey Hastings says, I've watched a few videos on card scraper sharpening, having difficulty getting them to the point of creating shavings instead of dust. The scrapers, he's got Crown scrapers, only made dust out of the box too. What tips do you have on properly burnishing the edges? You know, I wanted to get my little sample. You know what the problem is? The problem is you don't have a WoodWhisperer mouse scraper. And these are available at the woodwhispererguild.com/store.
It looks like West System on Amazon is cheaper.
Really? And it's not cheap.
Not by much.
Thing is, you get so much of it, but
Yeah.
if she's going through a lot for turnings, yikes. I don't know. So back to the scraper thing. If you've watched a bunch of videos, because a lot of times what I find, I'll see people who watch a video that says the same exact thing as another video, but for some reason, something clicked. Like one thing that the person does that's slightly different, or the way that they describe it is slightly different, and then they're like, you know, huzzah, I figured this out. Now I know how to turn a burr on a scraper. So watch a couple different videos, and it sounds like you already have, right? So if you still have no luck with that, one thing that's been a game changer for people, and we talked about this in the guild a while back, is there are burnishing helpers. So there are different products out there. The one I found works the best is made by Lee Valley, and it looks like a little black whale. Like it's a weird looking rounded contoured thing. Inside there's a slot and there is a burnishing rod, and you can change the angle of that burnishing rod. I've been using that. Like I can still turn a burr with a standard burnisher, but that thing is so easy to use. I bought it for testing purposes and then kept it because it makes life that much easier. There are people who have never been able to get a good hook on a scraper, but then they use that, boom, suddenly they have it. So what it comes down to is the angle they're using or the pressure they're using. Everything else they were doing was probably correct. That thing takes some of that out of the equation, and it's amazing how well it works. So if you're really frustrated and you're about to the point you're going to give up and just not use card scrapers, try that. It's not going to work that well on curved scrapers, but it will definitely get your standard rectangular scrapers with a nice burr, and you're going to be a happy camper. I think it's a good investment.
So someone in the chat room reminded me, I was going to have their name. Cody reminded me, we have a Total Boat discount. So if you
Use that discount.
if you're a guild member, you have a discount code. I think it's 10 or 15%. I can't remember. I have to look.
I think it's 15.
I think it is 15.
But yeah, definitely use that discount.
But you have to buy it on their website. So if you go to totalboat.com, put in the coupon code, it'll take the money off. So it might be
Cool.
cheaper that way.
That's awesome. That'd be great.
Dear
Okay,
God.
where are we? So Jeff Oravitz. Jeff Oravitz says,
Jive.
thanks for the show and the content you produce. Now my question, can a blade such as the Forest Woodworker 2 with a #1 grind be used as an everyday blade, or should it be reserved for cuts that require flat kerf like finger joints or box joints? You know, Jeff, you probably could use it for an everyday blade, but I wouldn't. I have one. I purely reserve it for joinery cuts. One of the reasons is because that's what it excels at, and it is something that I really don't want to have to send back for sharpening any more than is necessary. So it's a very specific use case, and probably for the rest of my woodworking career, it'll be sharp for the amount that I use it, right? Here's the problem with using it as an everyday blade. The way they make this, or at least if you look at the tooth configuration, is if you have an alternating bevel blade, if you guys don't know what that is, typically that means at the top of the blade, you got that little carbide tooth, and one tooth will be angled this way, and the tooth behind it is angled this way, and then it repeats that pattern. It looks like what they've done with the #1 grind is at the top of that peak, they've just cut it off. They've dog-eared it, right? So it's flat. So it does still alternate this way and that way, but it's flat at the top. So the reason we use alternating bevel blades is because that little sharp point does a great job of scoring the wood. So if you're cutting plywood, it just makes for like a less tear out prone situation. Cross cuts on hardwood even. You can get a lot of tear out if you don't have a good sharp blade with that alternating bevel. So when you grind it down, you don't have that anymore, and it's just a flat. So I think it's probably going to be a higher friction cut as you're using it. I think you will wear it down a lot faster, and this specialty blade is now going to need sharpening when it should just kind of be reserved for those specialty operations. So you can, but I wouldn't.
What were you talking about, Lee Valley? I wasn't listening to you. Somebody wants the link.
Lee Valley's, what would they call it? It's a burnishing tool. Yeah, and they actually, I saw Vic Teslin talking about a new one, but that's...
Is that it?
Hold on.
Card scraper burnisher?
Nope, that's, I think, the new one.
Oh, is that the new one?
And that it basically looks like it's got two little thumb plates on it. Here, I'm gonna get it. It's right over here.
I don't,
I moved
it's
my
right here.
Nope.
Nope.
Not it. Here it is.
Do they sell it anymore?
I hope so.
I don't
This.
see it though. I don't see it.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they stopped selling it and started selling that new thing with the thumb grips on it. Oh, type in variable burnisher.
Oh, there it is.
So it's got that slot right in here. That's where the card scraper goes. And then you are setting the angle with this, and you're just going 1 or 2 passes, done. It's really, really nice. Highly recommended.
There's your link, Daryl.
Okay.
We're past time.
Oh, shoot.
How many questions do we have
I
left?
got 3 more. We could pull those to the after show.
Okay.
Okay, so if you are a Patreon supporter, which we appreciate, we say thank you by doing an after show. So as soon as this show is done, Nicole's going to put a link to the after show, and any patron level, it doesn't matter, whatever you can contribute. We do this after show, we answer a few more woodworking questions, and we do some off-topic stuff and just kind of shoot the breeze.
Shoot the breeze.
Shoot the breeze, as it were. And this is patreon.com/woodwhisperer if you want to get into that.
I put a link to the after show in the chat. That's where we're going to move over to. I will also, I'll do the winner of the guild project in the after show.
Okay. And I didn't even talk about it. Did anyone notice I took the week off?
Good.
I took all of the social apps off my phone, and so maybe during the after show we'll talk about how I spent my week. It's not that exciting at all.
You needed it though. You need to do more of it.
I need to do more. Maybe I should take another week.
I took a picture, I'll show it in the after show, of him sleeping on the couch. He never does that.
When did I sleep? Look, I may have been laying on the couch with my eyes closed. Don't think I actually fell asleep.
I don't know, you look like you're asleep.
I was trying to fall asleep. So we've got a back covered patio area.
You want to show him? Can you show it to him?
Well, this is something that's easy for me to show if I have the file on the computer.
Well, I don't.
But they're not going to really be able to see the detail. But there's me.
Relaxing.
Trying to take a chooch on the back porch. Yeah. Well, it was so nice out. It was beautiful.
I got to make sure that before we go, because I did miss a super chat last week from Kurt Martin. He, at the very, very end, I think we had already gone off, and he did a super chat.
That's right, I remember
And
this.
I just wanted to say to Kurt, thank you, because he said, I pirated Hybrid Woodworker, your book, when I was out of work, and I always felt bad. So I'm in a better spot now, and I hope this makes up for it.
That's amazing.
It's totally, you're fine. So thank you, Kurt.
Not many people would do that.
Not at all.
You know, it's an interesting thing. So thank you, Kurt.
I want you in the guild. You're a good person. Email me, Nicole at the WoodWhisperer, and I'm gonna get you set up.
You see, guys, pirate stuff, and you get and more good things will come to you.
No, that's not wild. Because I relate. I mean, there was a time in my
Napster?
Yes.
Back in the Napster days?
The Napster days.
Look at all this free music.
And I felt so bad that I went out and I bought all of Ani DeFranco's albums because of it. And TT, is that Tony Tang?
I think Tony Tang.
Did a super chat and wants to know, has your jet clamp ever broke? My new one won't clamp.
No, I haven't had any breaks. I've had times where sometimes if you slide it all the way off the bar, getting it back onto the bar can be a bit of a challenge. I've had a handle break because I dropped it and I just epoxied it back on, and it's been good for like 10 years now. But I have never had one that just like gets stuck. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times if it does get stuck, you could kind of put it on the floor, pull on the trigger, and you can give the movable head portion a tap with a mallet and see if you can't dislodge it. But outside of that, I haven't had any kind of problems like that.
Josh, pirate all the things. No, Josh, don't pirate all the things. That's what,
Josh
what I'm
knows.
saying. That's what I'm not what I'm saying.
Look, pirate it all, and good things will come.
No, it's
Nicole
not.
will rain gifts upon
No,
you.
that doesn't. That is not a guarantee.
We should have a weekly feature of like someone who pirated something great and highlight it to really hammer it home, Nicole.
Russ Farmer did it one last super chat and said, "Hi, Mark and Nicole. Speaking of sandpaper, what are your thoughts on the Duragrit carbide sanding disc? Stubby Nubs is a big fan. Have you ever messed with them?
I don't know.
What are they?
I don't know.
Duragrit.
They're probably some kind of diamond embedded things. I don't know. What is it? What is it? I'm so not in the flow of like the newest, latest, and greatest stuff.
You use what you use, and
I got out of the flow.
And now I gotta get in.
Now I gotta get back in the flow.
It's these. Is that what it is?
Ceramic resin fiber? I don't know. It's clearly going to be some alternative grit material and probably lasts a long time.
Duragold Premium.
Duragold Premium. That sounds good. I don't know. I send me some and I'll try them.
No, don't send.
The ththing is, I'm still working on sandpaper that I've had in boxes that are like.
I'm looking at it.
2 generations ago of Festool
Two
boxes. Two shop moves ago. I'm still working through that stuff, so I have no motivation to buy new sandpaper. So it would have to be sent to me to evaluate it. But if Stumpy says it's good, then it must be good, because Stumpy knows.
He's Stumpy.
You know, Stumpy did a little thing on his bookshelf. And I think he saw hybrid woodworking, and it was still on his bookshelf.
No, I think it was essential joinery.
Or essential joinery, whichever. At least he's not using it to level a stool leg.
Jeremy Spence, love the no giveaways today. You're welcome, Jeremy.
Okay.
So, there was a lot of giveaways last week.
Yeah, last week was
it was a shop cleaning week.
You know, if you're not really into the giveaways or you watch this afterwards, that's a really crappy show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is not a fun show. And makes it even worse if you're listening to it in the podcast. I can't imagine a lot of people enjoyed that, Nicole. But it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it is.
This is what we do.
This is what we do.
You know, it's better than nothing.
Oh, TT's follow-up. I don't know. I can't see TT's follow-up.
Yeah, where is it?
I don't know.
Me either.
I don't see it.
Oh, he says, my clamp is not stuck. The clamping mechanism is not engaging the teeth on the metal bar. Again, that's never been a problem. Could be a manufacturing flaw. I don't really know for sure. Could sometimes if the you know, the little serrated edge, that little pattern that's on there, if it gets filled with glue sometimes, but it doesn't sound like that's what you're dealing with. You may give them a call. Maybe they'll just send you a replacement. Okay, we're good? All right. Peckers, everybody.
Peckers.
Right? Okay, have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all in the after show.
After show.
Peace out.
This is the after show.